instructor in this session, and this session is made possible with the help of Manifold AI Learning. So do check out their website. They are there. They are one of the platform which is there for you to help you grow in the machine learning operations as well as LLM operation. So I'm one of the instructor at their site where I'll be creating a content, and today's session is made possible with the help of the Manifold AI Learning team. So thank you again for joining in. I can see the learners are still joining in. We'll give 2 more minutes and then we'll get started. So folks, in the meantime, if you have got any questions or any queries before we get started or about the LLM or ML ops in general, feel free to let me know. I'll be happy to answer any of the queries that you might have, guys. Okay, use the chat window or the questions depending on the platform that you have joined in. If you have joined in with our Zoom webinar, so you can make use of Q&A. If you have joined through social media platform, feel free to make use of the comment section. I'll be reviewing those comment section as we move forward, and I'll ensure that your queries are being answered. Okay, so to get the access to the webinar content and the sessions recording, so you may visit the URL that I've shared just now in the chat window. So go ahead and check out the URL that I've mentioned in the live chat. So you can access the session's recording. That is, once today's session is completed, you can access the session's recording over there. Okay, so I welcome each and every one of you on this live session on monitoring the large language models in the production environment. So guys, in the topic of monitoring the large language models in our production environment, we've got various tools out there. Now, today, as we progress in today's session, we will be looking into one of the tools that we have got, which I have personally used, that's called as WhyLabs. Okay, so WhyLabs is a platform that is there, which will help us to monitor the machine learning models as well as the large language models. I had an opportunity in my organization to make use of the tools and monitor the machine learning models in the production environment. So, and even I have made use of the same in one of the course that I've authored with Manifold AI Learning. So I've really felt it's a very good add-on, and it's something that anyone can utilize it in their project. So we'll be going through as how we can make use of this YLabs platform and how we can monitor the large language models in the production environment. So that's the overall agenda, guys. So this session is mostly most of the session will be the hands-on. I'll be providing you the instruction. I'll also share you some of the quick start guide as how you can get started with YLabs. So you can create your account for free, and then we'll also show you as like how you can quickly get started and work with the large language model. So that would be the overall agenda, guys. So let's get started, everyone. Now, before we get started, I want to know more about you. So, can you please let me know about yourself? So, please let me know about your name and your experience in working with a large language model. So, please let me know your name and your experience in working with large language model. Okay, I see Sampriti has responded. Sampriti says that, sir, I've attended your previous workshop. Okay, that's great, Sampriti. And Lakshmikant says, sir, I'm aware of, I'm part of your ongoing batch. Okay, that's great, Lakshmikant. So I'm glad. Okay, so that means you're familiar with the large language model and how we can use it. That's great. How about others? So what is your background and what's your experience when it comes to working with large language model? Okay, Kavya says, uh, have got a basic idea about large language model, have not worked in the project. Okay, that's fine, Kavya. Kritika says, I'm a beginner in large language model. I've just started learning. Okay, that's great, Kritika. Okay, how about others team? What's your experience and what's your background when it comes to working with large language model? Sandeep says, sir, I'm a beginner. Okay, so I can see that most of the learners have joined today are beginner from the perspective of large language model and the generative AI. That's completely fine, guys. So I'll ensure that as we progress in today's session, I'll also give the background as well about what exactly is this large language model would mean and what is the importance around it. So by looking at the various learners and your responses, I think it is safe to say that we will be setting the agenda in this format. So I thought of directly diving deep into the why logs and monitoring the large language model, but we'll take a step by step so that everyone will be on the same page. First, we will understand what is NLP at a very high level, and then we'll understand a language model. Okay, we'll also understand what is large language model. Okay, and we'll also understand what is generative AI. We'll spend few minutes about the same, and then I'll talk about deploying the model at a very high level. So the first part will be around it. So once I talk about these basics, I think most of you will be on the same page, and then we would quickly go ahead and look into the deeper aspect of today's session, that is how to go about and monitor the large language model. Okay, so we'll talk about the WhyLabs platform. Okay, and then some quick hands-on with WhyLabs, and then we will go ahead and monitor the large language model with WhyLabs. Okay, that would be our today's agenda, guys. Now, as we proceed in today's session, so please feel free to post your questions in the chat window so that I can answer your queries. And if you are unable to follow along with me, just let me know. So I'll ensure that I'll provide you more context so that you can get the most of this today's session. So I hope we are good to start. So if yes, please confirm by typing as good to start in the chat window so that we can quickly get started with today's agenda. Okay, thank you, Lakshmi. Thank you, Kritika. Thank you, Karthik. Thank you, Samyukta. Thank you, Samiksha. Okay, Dheeraj, Kavya. Okay, Karthikeyan, Samir, Sangeeta. Okay, thank you so much, guys, for confirming. So let's get started, guys. So, uh, so first thing, okay. So since most of you have mentioned that you are completely new to large language model and you do not have any background about it, so I'll start with a basic terminology, that is NLP. So NLP is called as the natural language processing. So why this NLP is very important? Well, the reason this NLP is very important because here in the case of NLP, you will be interacting with the computer or a model in the natural language. So you'll be interacting in a natural language. That means the data that you will have will be in a natural language, that the language that we humans speak. It's not a programming language, it's a natural language. Now, when I say NLP, it's nothing but the natural language processing. It revolves around the techniques which is there for us to analyze the natural language. That's the basic idea about this natural language processing. Okay, so natural language processing, it basically involves the techniques which we'll be using it to perform the analysis of this natural language. So that's how simply that I can specify about this natural language processing. So the main reason that NLP is very important because, as I mentioned, using this NLP, I can analyze the text data. So you know already about, if you're someone who's working in machine learning domain, you know the how easy it is to work with the tabular data with the various machine learning algorithms that we have got. Now, natural language processing involves the techniques that we follow to make sense about the text data. That's the idea about this NLP. Okay, now if I want to give you a quick background about this NLP, so previously what we were doing is, okay, like when I say previously, before the large language model and before the transformers, when we wanted to perform some analysis on the text data, Okay, so at that time, what we used to do is we used to go ahead and load the text data. So we were loading the text data in using the Python data structures. It could be list or a data frame, and then we were manually performing the pre-processing. Now this pre-processing involved multi-step. So if I want to talk about the multi-step pre-processing, so we were working with the raw data, whatever the raw data that we had, we were working with that raw data and we were performing the cleaning and pre-processing. So when I say performing the cleaning and pre-processing, which basically involved steps like processing the emojis that we might have, performing some grammatical check, error correction, and if there were any Unicode, we were performing some normalization over there, and we will remove the special characters which does not make sense. So all those things that we were performing it manually as part of cleaning and pre-processing. Then we were performing the activity of tokenization. Now tokenization is nothing but breaking down the string into subparts so that it can be processed by the model that we are trying to train. And then after we perform the tokenization, we were making use of some techniques, like it could be count vectorization technique, frequency, inverse document frequency vectorization technique, or word2vec. So we were making use of all these techniques to convert our text data into a numerical format. And then we were making use of machine learning or deep learning algorithm to find the patterns in the data, and we were performing the evaluation. So one challenge that we had earlier was we had to perform all these things in a manual manner, and we were hoping that we were hoping that after we get the data into the numerical format, the model that we were trying to use, whether it would be an SVM model or a random forest model or let's say naive model, the model that we were trying to use, we were hoping that this model will be able to understand the context of our natural language. Now, based on this assumption, we were performing all these steps in the natural language processing. And we had a lot of challenges. So we had challenges, one, because the models were unable to understand the context. We struggled over there. And that's when the recurrent neural network came into picture. And the recurrent neural network, the context window was very small. And then we went ahead and started using the LSTM, but the processing was very slow, and we were processing sentence by sentence, we were generating a token by token. So those were the challenges that we had, and that's when the the NLP, this NLP domain started improving, and many researchers came into picture, and that's where the concepts like the transformers came into picture, which actually helped us to parallelly work with the text data, improve the speed, and it also gave a large context size so that we were able to work with the machine learning model and work with the text data in an efficient way. Okay, so that's the whole background about this NLP. So previously we had challenges in working with the text data and understanding the context. We came up with deep learning algorithms. Then after that, we came up with the transformer, and that's when the concept of pre-training, okay, concept of pre-training, and that's when the concept of pre-training and also the concept of pre-training or usage of trained model or the transfer learning. That's where the concept of transfer learning started utilizing for the NLP domain. So before the use of transformers and started working, so at that time, whenever we had a task, we had to train the model from scratch. Now with this pre-training and transfer learning, we were able to make use of the already trained model, perform the fine tuning and get the best performing model. So that's the advantage that we started getting with the help of this language model. Now here, the one thing that I've mentioned right now is the pre-training. So let me just give you a background as what happens when we say that as a pre-training. So when I say pre-training here, what we will do is for the large corpus of the text data that we will have, we would go ahead and train it in an unsupervised learning manner. Okay, we will be training it in an unsupervised learning fashion. Now it's an interesting manner in which that we'll be training. To give you an illustration, let me just give you an example text. Suppose I've got a text that says as my favorite anime is Naruto. Okay, let us assume that this is the sentence that I've got. Okay, I've got a sentence which says that my favorite anime is Naruto. Now, in the process of pre-training, so what we will do is we'll get this text data. In my example, I've taken only one sentence, but in reality, we will be dealing with large corpus. So we'll take the large corpus of text data and we will create the tokens from that large corpus. So if I say tokens, I'll be splitting this sentence into individual words and each word is called token. And then once we perform the tokenization, we will build the model, we will train the model in an unsupervised manner. The way that we would train it in an unsupervised manner is we will say, given the current word, what is the next word? Okay, we will train the model such that given the current word, what is the next word? So I'll be creating the pair of the words that I have got, and that makes up my pre-training. That means for the word my, I'll be expecting the output as favorite. For the word favorite, I'll be expecting the next word that is anime. And for the word anime, I'll be expecting the next word that is. And for the word is, I'll be expecting the word as Naruto. So in this way, I'll be creating the training pairs from the training data itself. And by creating such multiple pairs on the data set and training in the same fashion on a large corpus, so we will be able to extract the relationship between the words that we have got. So that's the core idea behind this language model. And this kind of step that we perform on this text data is called as pre-training. So this is called as the pre-training step when we are working with the text data. Okay, so in this pre-training step, I would go ahead and try to learn the context between the words. Now, after the training on multiple epochs on the large data set, obviously I'll be left with a model where I have a better idea about the context between the individual words. So that's the overall intuition behind this pre-training step. Okay, so the model that I would get at this point is called as the language model. Now, once I have performed this pre-training, the next thing that we will do is we will perform the domain adaptation. So here, when we talk about the domain adaptation step, we will make use of the required domain data. Like for example, I'll take up the sentiment analysis as the task, and I'm interested in performing the sentiment analysis, let's say on the movie data. So I will take up the corpus which are related to the movie data. Maybe I'll take it from IMDb data set. And then on that label data, I'll perform the domain adaptation. That means whatever the pre-trained model that I've got in the previous step, I'll perform the domain adaptation on top of it. Now, by training it in this way, we have seen tremendous improvement, especially in terms of the model performance and its ability to understand the context and generate the output in an efficient manner. And that's where the multiple language models were introduced. So that's where the year where we saw a lot of developments around GPT models and Google BERT model, and like this, multiple models were released. Okay, so that's the overall idea about this language model. Now, around that time, so like when these language models were being introduced, so all these language models, they have taken in model architecture, which is called as the transformer model architecture. So they've used this transformer model architecture this transformer model had got actually two parts like encoder and decoder. They have selected the encoder for some model, they have selected decoders for some other family of models, and then they have stacked it together and they created a very large language model. That means when I say large language model, it is basically a model which has got large number of parameters, which has got the capability to learn the patterns in the data set. Okay, and that's where the large language model came into picture. So the GPT model, BERT model, these are all some of the examples of the large language model. Okay, so is everyone clear, team, about the NLP language model and the large language model? Are you clear till now? So are you with me? So if yes, please confirm by typing as yes in the chat window, please. Thank you, Rakshit. Thank you, Pradeep. Thank you, Sandeep, Karthik, Kavya. Okay, Sridhar, Kant. Okay. Dheeraj, Soumya. Okay. Thank you so much, team, for your confirmation. Okay. So thank you for confirming that you are able to follow. So folks, as I'm telling you again, in case if you're unable to follow or if you have got any question, feel free to let me know. Okay. So what you have now understood is the core idea. Okay. You have now understood the core idea of this natural language processing. Now moving on. Let's understand about this generative AI, which is the key term, which is something which everyone is talking about. So let's understand what is this generative AI. So generative AI is basically the family of models. It's the family of models where it has got the capability to generate, okay, it has got the capability to generate new data or the content based on the patterns, okay, based on the patterns that we specify in the format of text. So in the other family or in the existing family of the model that we have got, so what we were doing in the case of discriminative models or the machine learning models, we were making use of models to differentiate between the various classes, like, or it can be we were using the model to uh, predict something. But in this case of generative AI, so what I'm doing is whatever my training data set is, I'll use the training data set as a like as a criteria, and using the training data set, okay, I was trying to find the patterns in the training data set itself, and I was generating the new data based on the pattern that I have identified in the training data set. That's a special thing about this generative models or this generative AI. So which means I can mention the pattern which I want. It can be in the natural language. Now my model is going to generate the output based on the input that I have given, that is based on the pattern that I have mentioned in the format of text, and based on that it will generate the new content. And that's what the chat GPT or various generative models that we see these days is going to work. So the reason that the chat GPT is able to generate the response from a given text, let me just show you, let me just illustrate the same so that it makes more sense to you. So if I open up my chat GPT and let's suppose if I ask a question, okay, to my chat GPT, I will ask as, okay, what is transformers in NLP. So here I'm asking a pattern. I'm mentioning the required pattern in a text format. So this pattern is generally called as prompt. So we will mention the prompt as an input. Then for this prompt, based on this prompt that I have provided as an input, the model is going to generate the output. And here the chat GPT is able to generate the output because somewhere in their training data, this content was existing. This content was existing. So since I made a question about what is transformers in NLP, it looked into its training data set, and it is able to generate the output based on its training data set. So one thing that you have to remember if you're someone who's new to generative AI is these models are not live. Like when I say live, it's not updated on a day-to-day basis. Let me just give you an example. Let's say Formula One race, okay? Let's say F1 2024 Bahrain winner. Okay, let's suppose the F1 Bahrain winner in 2024. Let's assume that I want to get some information about the winners and losers from 2024 Bahrain Grand Prix. Now, in that scenario, if I ask the same question to my chat GPT, observe the answer. See, what it says is it's an AI model which doesn't have the access to the real data. It doesn't have the access to the real data, and it says that its data is limited till Jan 2022. So which clearly states that the model that we have got, okay, the large language model that we have got, or the generative models, they are basically the model, okay, they are basically the model that like which is there for us, okay, which will generate the output based on the already existing training data. So here in this case, GPT 3.5 is having the data till the 2022. So that's the background, and that's a very high level idea as how these models are working, guys. So in the case of generative AI, it's basically a model which is able to generate, okay, it is able to generate the output based on the training data. Okay, that's the overall concept about this generative AI. Then the next concept is the deploying of the model. So this deploying of the model. So I want to ask you, okay, what do you understand when we mention as deploying the model? So what do you understand when we say I'm going to deploy the model to the production environment? So what do you understand by that, team? Okay, I see responses are coming in. So team, ensure you mention your response in the chat window. I can see the chat window, even the social media platforms, as well as our the Zoom call. Okay, so feel free to let me know. Okay, what do you understand when we talk about deploying of the model? Okay, I can. So I'm also sharing you the Zoom link for the learners who wants to join the session through the Zoom. Okay, so that they can interact with me on the session itself. Because some learners are texting saying that can I join the Zoom? I don't have the Zoom. Okay, I've also mentioned the Zoom link as well. So this is something if you want to join directly on the Zoom session and you want to interact over here. Okay, so I can see multiple responses. That's great. So deploying is nothing but uh, placing the model before the endpoint so that yeah, it can take the request and generate the output. That's 100% true. That's correct, Samiksha. Okay, that's correct, Kavya, Kartika, Krutika. Okay, Lakshmi, Soumya. Okay, that's perfect, guys. Okay, as most of you have mentioned, yes, that's correct. So when we talk about the deploying of the model, so deploying of the model is basically ensuring that the model is available. Okay, ensuring that the model is available uh, like for the other systems so that it can interact and it can generate the output on the new data. That's the overall idea about this deploying of the model. Now, where does this monitoring would come into picture? Well, the monitoring would come into picture the minute you start deploying into the production environment or minute that you start testing your model. Because once the model is in the production environment, it's not 100% true or it will not be 100% safe saying that, okay, my model is in production, nothing bad would happen because you might have followed the various news website as well. So like there was a generative model, and the chatbot, because of the hallucination which happened on the chatbot. Okay, so the Air Canada, so they actually because of the chatbot that was created by the Air Canada, so because of that, it made itself some policy to the customer, and as a result of this, the company had to pay a huge loss. I mean, it has to uh, like uh, if I want to bring back the context, you might have followed in the news where the Air Canada ordered to pay for its chatbot's false information. So basically, the chatbot that was created by Air Canada, so it promised a refund for a customer, and then when the customer reached out to the people on the website or the company claimed that, okay, we don't take that ownership because we don't have that in a policy. But because of the hallucination that would happen in that chatbot, so the company was forced to pay for the customer, refund the same to the customer. So which means it's very important that not only that we deploy the model to the production environment, but we monitor the same. Now, how do we monitor it? Now, what is the key idea behind this monitoring? So, let us understand that as we progress in today's session. And that's what we'd be focusing on as we progress from now on. All right, team. So, I hope everyone has the context as where does this today's session would fit in. So, we will be talking more specifically about how to monitor the models. And we'll also talk about the tools that are out there to monitor our large language models. So, are you with me till here? Okay. So, if you have got any question, do let me know. So, folks on Zoom, yeah, please confirm me over the Q&A by mentioning as yes. And folks over on the social media platforms, please confirm by typing as yes to confirm that you are with me till here. Okay, Dheeraj. Okay, Kavya, Karthik. Okay, Elaine. Okay, Uday, Umesh, Balu. Okay, perfect. Excellent, guys. Thank you so much for your confirmation. So now that we have a background, okay, so now that you have a background about what is large language model, the importance of it, and why the monitoring of the large language model is required, let's deep dive into the monitoring aspect, and let's understand how does the monitoring what takes place whenever we are working with any machine learning or the large language model based system. Okay, so let's get started, folks. Now, when we talk about monitoring the large language models, okay, or monitoring the models in detail in general, okay, so what you would have is generally in your production environment, you will have multiple sources of data that would flow in. So you might have whenever you are performing the training, so you might have some training data with you. So if I talk about the data, you'll be having some training data, you'll have some evaluation data, like you'll have the response data that is prediction from the model. You might have some streaming data as well, which is nothing but the incoming data, that is a new data that is coming in. And you might have some batch data. So batch data is nothing but the data that you have collected for a specific period and you want to process it together. That's what we call it as the batch data. Now, when you have such data, like when you have all these data, so one of the common thing that we want to observe whenever we are working with such data over here in our data pipeline is we want to generally perform the analysis of the distribution. So one key way to look at it is whether the training data and the streaming data that I'm getting right now, that is my data which my model has been trained on, and the new data that I'm getting it for the generation of prediction. I want to check whether the distribution is the same or not. And I want to check if I'm working with the training data or I'm generating some prediction with the help of batch data or training data. I want to perform some missing value analysis. And I also want to check the summary statistics. So this is very important because whatever the uh, data features that you have got on the training environment, that is the model that has been trained on, you want to ensure that the summary statistics would be more or less same on the new data that is coming in for generation of the prediction, because that's the reference that your model has received. Now, when that's the reference that your model has received, it is very important that whenever you are like deploying the model and when the new data is coming in, you want to ensure that the same data, okay, the same summary statistics is available for this data too. Okay, that's an just a seconds, guys. Yeah, so that's the important thing about the AI, the observability that we generally do. So we want to check the summary data, we want to check for missing values, we want to check for distribution, and yeah, these are the key things that we generally do. Now, what do we generally require? Now, while performing this analysis, obviously, we need a platform to help us to give us a summary of all these details, and that's where the various observability platform would come into picture. Like when we are talking about the observability platform, we would expect that in the platform we will have the ability to perform the aggregation of this statistics that we have got, and it has got the ability to store the statistics and maybe detect for any outliers in the data set, and it would help us to perform the query. It will also help us to perform the monitoring. So these are the various abilities that we will be looking at whenever we are thinking about monitoring the machine learning models or the LLM or AI models in the production environment. So we want to look into its data characteristics or the data statistics, and we want to get an aggregation using the observability platform. And then from this observability platform, we also expect few things. One is creation of visualization. It could be in the format of graph, reports, or dashboards. So that is what we would expect. And we'll also expect some kind of a triggers and workflow. Okay, that is also what we would expect, and we'll also expect some alerts. Let's suppose if the data that I'm receiving in the production environment, it is completely away from the statistics of my training data, I want to send an alert right away to my data science team, because they have to look into the new data that is coming in and see whether it is actually a data pipeline issue. That means whether a data transformation is not working correctly, or whether a sensor which I have fitted in my environment, that sensor telemetry data, whether it is sending in the wrong values, or is it because something changed in that front end because of that is happening. So an alert has to be triggered so that the data pipeline can be fixed, and we can ensure that the data that is receiving it for my model is as per the training data that we have got. Now, if the new data that is coming in, if that's the new data that is actually valid, then we definitely have to re-trigger a training pipeline with the updated data that we have got, and then we'll have to train that model. And maybe what we can do is we can think about creating a new version of the model and create it as a shadow model, where the end user might not just get the output from that model, but we can just have it as a version in the production environment. We can generate the prediction using that shadow model, and whatever the output that we would generate using that shadow model, we will use it as an inference. Now, once that is done, okay, once that shadow model, and if you are satisfied with the behavior of the shadow model, then we can switch it so that it can be used to uh, deliver the same to the customer, that is for the customer. So that's the overall idea that we think about when we like that's the overall basics when we think about monitoring any machine learning model. Okay, that's the core idea, team. And as I mentioned, I'll be expecting these are the things in any observability platform. So WhyLabs will provide all these abilities. That's what I've explored when I was doing some research and when I was creating a POC for one of the customer. And here I want to just spend few more minutes as what are the key things and what things that it can go wrong? So one, as I mentioned, when we are working with the environment, okay, when we are monitoring the machine learning models, one, a data drift can occur. That's when the summary statistics would not match, or it could be because of the schema issues. We observe that the schema that I have used for training and the schema that we started receiving. So, it might not be the same. So, as a result of this, we might start seeing such issues. And the another issue can be the concept drift. So, which means there is no issue with the data, but the concept itself has changed. So, that could be from the output standpoint, and another reason, like the reason that we want to monitor the machine learning models in in the production environment is like I want to ensure that my model is always working as per the expectation of the business. So we'll be interested in monitoring the metrics like the accuracy, recall, bias, explainability, and even the business KPIs. So these are the things that we always want to monitor for any machine learning models, and the same goes true even for the large language models, which is basically the text based models as well. Now here, when we are like I've already described what are these large language models. There are various large language models that we have got. So like one is like GPT, that's a very famous large language model. And we have a Hugging Face library where you can access a lot of open source large language model. We've got Llama. So like this, there are various large language models that we have got. Now, some of the key things or the pain points that I could say when we are monitoring such large language model is basically the hallucination. So, hallucination is a scenario where the large language models started generating the irrelevant or inaccurate responses. And as I've given you one example itself, it is a completely risk prone for the business and the overall the company itself. So hallucination is one of the key pain point that we would say. And another key thing is basically the prompt engineering. So if you have attended our previous live webinar on the prompt engineering, you might have understood the importance of prompt engineering. So I can share the link at a later point. So you know that from the previous live session, if you have attended, so importance of prompt engineering. Prompt engineering is nothing but modifying the prompts in an effect in a way so that we can generate the output in an effective manner. That is, whatever the input that I give to the large language model, we will modify and we will change it or we will adjust it so that we can get the output in an expected manner. So that's what we call it as the prompt engineering. And here, there's no common way to say that, okay, this is the one that is suitable for my text data. So there's no one size that fits all. So that's another key pain point that we have while working. And here, because of this reason, we cannot measure it in a consistent manner. So that's one challenge. And it is also very difficult to track the changes over the period of time. And it is very difficult to say whether it is making any impact to our model or not. And as a result of this, in some scenarios, even the large language model will become unmonitored as well. And another challenge that we would face whenever we are monitoring the large language model is basically the output validation. See, whenever we are talking about the generative models, so that is the model which is going to generate the output based on the input paragraph or input prompt, it is very difficult to monitor such output at scale. Like it is very difficult to say whether the output that we are getting, whether it is in alignment or not. So it is very difficult to say the output that is being generated by the model, whether it is following the instruction or not. And we also want to ensure that we don't want the model to come up with its own logic, or we don't want the model to simply share the credit card of the other customer. because we don't want to do such things, isn't it? So just because someone starts using some prompt, my model should not go in a way and start leaking all the personal data of my system about the other customers to the hackers. Like that's not the situation that we want to be in. So it is very important that we validate the output from the model. And that's another key pain point that we face, especially when we are monitoring the large language model. So these are all the common key pain points that we would get to see. And so to have a better way, okay, so what researchers have come up is like they have come up with various technique. So maybe so one of some of the common techniques that researchers these days have come up is implementation of the guardrails. So when I say implementation of the guardrails, it is basically saying that, okay, you will control which prompt and which responses are appropriate for your LLM. So here, let me just give you an example. Let's say you have created your large language model to resolve the queries in the retail domain. Now, if some customer comes to you and asks about the questions related to the finance domain, so you will say that, hey, your question seems to be not from the retail domain. So why don't you go ahead and ask the question related to the products that you have ordered with me? So you can describe the guardrail over there so that it can stay within the domain that you have trained, and you can ensure that so like the responses are actually given only to the ones that you want to provide. So that's one way. And maybe the another technique that people started to use to monitor the large language model is evaluation. Maybe you'll create some set of prompts and you will use that prompt, and you will create some versions of the prompt and monitor over the period of time while comparing the user prompt and comparing how your model performs on the individual set of prompts. And another key thing that you can use it to monitor your large language model is the observability. So you will go ahead and observe your large language models, how the sentiment analysis or how the sentiment is being like found over the period of time. So that's how you would focus when we talk about the observability too. So these are the key things that you would focus on when you're monitoring the large language models at scale. Now, here, in order to solve these issues when you are implementing it at scale, so one library that I've come across, it's called as the Lang kit. So let me take you to the official documentation of Lang kit. Okay, this is the GitHub repository of this Lang kit, which and I think yeah, this is the documentation page that I found regarding this Lang kit. So using this Lang kit, yeah, you can make use of this guardrail evaluation and observability. And using this Lang kit, so you can like use it for large scale, and you can monitor your large language models, and you can quickly get started. And they also provide the observability platform, that is WhyLabs, and you can go ahead and implement the observability as well. Okay, so that's the key idea about this Lang kit, and this is what we'll be focusing today. Okay, now the best part is when you are working with this Langkit library that I found is like it provides some of the out of the box metric like the response relevance, and it will check for pattern, sentiment, toxicity, categories, difficult words, reading score. So it provides some of the out of the box metric. So obviously the even though the out of the box metric is given to us, but depending on the use case that you're working, so the out of the box metric might not be sufficient in each and every scenario. At least I personally have worked with the medical domain, and some of the metrics that was provided in the like out of the box metric provided by WhyLabs was not sufficient, but they also provide an ability to add our own custom metric so that we can use it in our project. Okay, so this is something that we'll be using today to quickly get started. And they've also provided some documentation around it, which talks about how you can quickly get started with Lankit. So this, I think they have provided some details as how you can get started. In order to get started, you just have to install it and you'll initialize your LLM metrics and quickly get started and send it to the WhyLabs and work with the same. That's the overall idea of Lankit, and it is very easy to use library when it comes to monitoring the large language model. Okay, so that's the overall idea of working with the large language model and monitoring the same. Now let's go ahead and let's get some more details in a hands-on manner so that it will be much easier for you to grasp these concepts about monitoring these large language models in a production environment. Okay, so let's get started, guys. So in order to perform the coding, I'll do one thing. I'll launch my Google Colab. I'll create a new Google Colab notebook and I'll start coding over here. And once the session is completed, I'll be uploading this notebook into our webinar portal, that is Manifold AI Learning Workshops. So you can just access the notebook over here under this portal. Okay, so let's quickly get started, folks. So I'll say monitoring the LLM. All right, so let's get started, guys. See, in order to get started, so one thing that we would require is we'll be installing the transformers. So I'll say pip install transformers from Hugging Face. I'll say pip install Lankit. Okay, so this is what I'll be doing the installation. Okay, once the transformers and the Lankit has been installed, so we can get started, guys. So here, so what we will do is we will simply get started with the Lankit library and understand as how to work with this library, guys. Okay, we'll start our learning journey with this Lankit library. So what is Lankit library? So Lankit, okay, let me restart. It is asking me for restart. Let me restart. Okay, so what is Lankit? So Lankit is an open source text metrics toolkit. And this toolkit is what we use it to monitor the large language models. So what this Lankit offers is it offers the various methods so that we can extract the relevant signals from the input or the output text. And the best part is this is compatible with the open source data logging library, which is basically the WhyLogs from the WhyLabs itself. Okay, that's the best part about this Lankit. So let's go ahead and work with the same. So I've basically done the installation of this Lankit library. Now, once the installation is completed, we'll look into the metrics for the LLM application. So this Lankit, it basically provides the set of metrics for the LLM application. So in order to get started, I will say as from Lankit import LLM metrics. Okay, this is what I'll do the import, and I'll also import the YLogs. So as I mentioned, WhyLogs is an open source data logging library. You can use it for monitoring your data pipeline and as well as your machine learning models. And I'll be using the same logging library, that is WhyLogs right here. So once this is imported, I can go ahead and initialize the LLM metrics. So in order to initialize my LLM metrics, I'll simply say y.init. So this will initialize my uh, ylog. Okay, so let me just, okay, so let me just go ahead and do the same. So let me just, it is providing some instruction. I'll just do the same. Okay, once this is done, okay, I will go ahead and initialize my logs. And also, okay, here it says what kind of session you want to use. I'll say use an API. It is basically telling me, okay, what kind of session that you want to use. I'll select the first one where I want to use an API key to upload to WhyLabs. Okay, this is going to perform the initialization, and it is asking me my API key. Okay, so in order to work with this ylogs and push the data to the YLabs platform, so what you need to do is you need to create an account with YLabs. So the way that you can create an account with the YLabs is here. You can just go to the YLabs platform. Okay, I've already logged in. You can quickly get started and perform the sign up. You can simply create a free account. So you don't have to link your credit card or anything. Just create your free account. And once you create your free account, so expand here and go to the settings. Under the settings, there is a section that's called as access tokens. And from here, you would generate the access token. I'll remove the existing token and I'll say create new access token. I'll say YLabs demo. That's the access token name. I'll mention as create access token. So this has generated a new access token for me. I'll copy this access token and I would paste it right here where it is asking me for the API key. Next, it says what is the default dataset ID that I want to upload to. Now, what it means is here, this is asking me to which model that I want to work with. Well, in the YLabs platform, so what I can do is I can configure a resource. So anything that you want to more like work inside the YLabs, you need to create a resource. And in this scenario, since we are monitoring the large language model, so I would go ahead and create a resource. So I'll go to the project dashboard and I'll select the option of setup resource. So as a free account, you would get the you would actually get the what I can say like two models that you can create. So I think I've already created one, but I'll show you another example. I'll say YLabs demo, and this for the resource type, I'll mention as large language model, and I'll click on this button which says as add models or data set. So I have mentioned the same. Okay, now once this is mentioned, I can now go ahead and mention the next thing. So what it is asking over here, it is asking me as enter the default dataset ID to upload it. So I'll mention it as model 7, which I've just created, and I'll mention it right here. Okay, and I'll press the enter key. So what it says is it has instantiated the session. It has selected my API key, my default data set, and my session type as YLabs. So that's what I did. So I have initialized the session so that whatever the monitoring that I want to do, I can push those metrics to my YLabs platform and we can visualize it. That's the main setup that we did just now. Okay, that's what I did it here just now, team. Next, let's proceed ahead. So we have done this initialization. Now, once the initialization is completed, I'll also go ahead and initialize my LLM metrics. So in order to initialize my LLM metrics, I've already imported my LLM metrics from Langkit library. Now I will say schema is equal to LLM metrics dot init. Now remember when you're running this for the first time, so it will take a while because it has to download the model. So when you're executing it for the first time, it might take a while. Okay. Now once I have instantiated the LLM metrics as a initial schema, now I can go ahead and I can log some example prompts or the response pair, and I can push those metrics to the YLabs platform, which is there for me to monitor these metrics into the platform itself inside my YLabs platform itself. Okay, so I'll mention as from Langkit.ylogs. So for the demonstration, I'll just choose some sample data, which is provided from this Langkit library. I'll say samples, and from this, I'll be importing some demonstration chats. I'll say load chats, and I'll also import show first chat. Okay, these are the two things that I would do the import. Now, what I'll do is I'll just quickly load a toy example. I'll say chats is equal to load chats, and this will basically load some toy example which we can actually play around. So if I expand this chats, okay, this just displays the list of chats that I've got. It says the prompt is hello, and I've got a response over here that says as word, and the prompt is hello world, and the response here says that hello, how can I assist you today? So this is basically the chats which are basically the combination of prompt and response. They are basically the prompt and response pair that I have got. Okay, so that's the basic collection of prompts and response that I have got. And here, if you remember, I have loaded this function as well, show first chat. So what it does is it will just show me the chat, that's all. So if I say chats, it will just load me the first chat, like prompt is hello, hello, and the response is word. So that's what it says. Now, if I want to log this data, okay, if I want to log this data to my WhyLabs platform, I can mention it as like this. I'll say results is equal to y.log. I'll mention as chats. Name is equal to maybe Lankit example. Okay, that's what I would mention. And I'll specify my schema is equal to schema. Okay, so I'm logging the data over here, and I'm storing the output in the results variable. Okay, so that's what I am doing right here. So let's wait, folks. It is uh, working in the back end. Okay, so it says it has aggregated 50 rows into the profile Lankit example, and it also mentions the URL. Visualize and explore this profile with one click. So if I click on this, so it basically takes me to the WhyLabs platform where it has aggregated the chats that are with me. So here, what has happened is, guys, whatever the chats that I have got, which is my prompt and the response, I'm able to log it, and this has logged it to the WhyLabs platform. Now I can go ahead. Okay, now I can go ahead and get more details about the complete profile that has been loaded. So we can look into the metric name, we have the prompt, and it says total number of count is 50. Okay, unique values is 47 and mean, and we can look into the all these details, okay, the jailbreak similarity, and we actually get to see about all various metrics that we have got, which we generally use it for monitoring our large language models, guys. Okay, so that's the best part when it comes to working with the WhyLabs platform and logging the output to the WhyLabs. All right, guys. So any questions on any of the topics that we have discussed till now? So please let me know, team. Now I want to understand, are you able to follow along with me? Okay, let me just give you a quick background what I did just now in the setup. So some learners are posting it in the chat window as how I have actually set up this environment. Well, guys, the way in which that I have set up this environment is I've logged into the YLabs. So go to the, maybe you can do a quick search like YLabs login. Okay, so it will take you to the website ylogs.ai. Click on login and get started for free. Perform the sign up, and once you have done the sign up, okay, after your email verification, go to the settings, and from here you can create the access token. Okay, and whenever you instantiate the command of ylogs.init, so ensure that you mention all the details that is mentioned. One is the API key, and then along with that it will also ask you for the resource. In my case, I created the resource that is ylabs demo. So I created that resource and I have mentioned the same. And once I've instantiated everything in that y.init command, then I have pushed the details, that is pushed my profiles to this WhyLabs platform. Now I'm able to explore the profiles. So that's the overall idea here, team. So here the profile that I mentioned is Lankit example, and we are able to view it right here. Okay, that's a quick summary of this hands-on part. So any questions till now, team? Are you able to follow along with me? So if you're able to follow along with me, please confirm by typing as yes. Or if something is still not clear, please feel free to let me know. I'll give you 2 minutes. In the meantime, I'll be uploading this notebook to our webinar interface so that you can download it from there, folks. Since I can see learners have joined from various portal, to make it simpler, I would go ahead and upload it in the place where everyone can access it. Okay, team, you should be able to access it now. Just refresh the page and you should be able to access it. Let me ping the link in case if you're not having it. So the link to access the source code is this. Okay, it's bit.ly/manifold AI learning, and I'll mention the same over here on the social media platforms where the learners have joined. Okay, just sign up and you'll be able to access the source code as well. Have a quick review on the sign up. In the meantime, if you've got any question, feel free to let me know, guys. So as I mentioned, this session is being made possible with the help of the team at Manifold AI Learning. I would recommend you to follow the Manifold AI Learning on the social media platforms, that is on LinkedIn, Instagram, and on Facebook, so that you can get the latest updates on the various workshops that are being conducted by Manifold AI Learning team. And I also want to talk about their latest course, which I've gotten a chance to create with them, which is called as the LLM Ops with ChatGPT, where we will talk about the practices that you need to follow when you are deploying the LLM AI-based models to the production environment, where we talk about a lot of things. Like we'll talk about the prompt engineering, how to generate the prompt, describe the prompt, and as you progress, you'll also learn about the technical details of LLM. You'll create your first project, which is building the LLM application using the chat GPT. And then you will not only it ends there, we'll talk about the packaging the LLM model, deploying the container with the help of Kubernetes. We'll talk about implementing the CI/CD pipeline using the GitHub action, how you can set up the Kubernetes and core concepts around it, and then we'll implement the automation, and your project 2 is about building the generator app using the Hugging Face. And at the end, we'll also talk about how you can monitor these LLM models in the production environment, where we'll be learning in depth about whatever the topics that we are learning here today. So I invite you to enroll on this course. The expectation date for this course is being added. It's present currently only in the Manifold AI Learning website. And since you have joined with me on this webinar session from the instructor side, there's a special coupon code that's called as webinar 25, and use this coupon code to avail 25% off on the prices that you see on this Manifold AI Learning site. So on top of the price that you see right here, so you can avail additional 25% off. Remember, it's valid for only 24 hours, so make the most of the same. Okay, in the meantime, if you have got any questions, please feel free to let me know. I can see few learners are still trying out and registering for the source code. So please go ahead and do that, folks. And if you have got any question, so please feel free to let me know. Okay, I'll give you 2 more minutes to review the source code, and I'll be happy to answer any of the other queries that you might have, team. So I can see few learners are asking about the coupon code. Yeah, the coupon code is webinar 25. I think I've pasted on the screen as well. Webinar 25. You can use it during the checkout to avail 25% discount. And this course is available worldwide. So more than 100 learners have already registered to this pre-launch, and this price is is only for valid for the pre-launch. So once the course is launched completely, so you'll not be able to get the most benefit. So get the most benefit of the price that you see. Okay, I'll give you 2 more minutes, guys. Review the code and let me know if you have got any question. So I see a question from Kavya. Kavya says that, sir, how can I set up the WhyLabs platform? Can you show again? Sure. See, as I mentioned, like you can do a quick Google search on WhyLabs login. Okay, and then create an account, and that's it. Like once you create an account, you'll be redirected here. You'll have to create two things. One is a resource, and the other one is basically the API key. So go to the settings. Okay, after you go to the settings, access key, and generate the access key from here. Okay, if you follow through the code that I have uploaded on the webinar portal, so you can just it will ask you step by step and ensure that you mention the same. That's all. That's easy. All right, guys. Now I want to ask you. So, were you able to follow along with me till here? Because most of you have mentioned that you're completely new to this large language model and its monitoring. So, are you able to follow along with me till here? And how do you feel as of now compared to the initial 1 hour? So, are you able to follow along with me? Do let me know your thoughts. Okay, that's great to hear, Karthik. Karthik says that, yeah, I'm able to follow along, and it's a great one. Okay, thank you, Karthik. Okay, Kant says that, sir, it's a good one. I'm able to follow along. I think I have got some idea as well. Okay, that's great, Kant. So, how about others? Are you able to follow along with me? Is the pace is okay? Okay, thank you, Rakshit. Thank you, Ramesh. Perfect, guys. I see a lot of you have confirming and saying that, okay, you were able to follow along with me. That's a very encouraging one. Excellent. Okay, so let's proceed ahead, guys, and let's proceed ahead in the learning journey. So you have seen as how you can go ahead and log the data. So the best part is, okay, so now that you have seen how you can create the logs, okay, now once you have logged in the logs right here, so whatever the metrics that you see right here, you can go ahead and create your own metrics as well, and you can go ahead and go to the monitor manager, and from here you can also go ahead and set up your own monitoring as well. Like for example, I can set up a new monitor. By default it is suggesting some monitor ID. I'll keep it as it is, and maybe I can specify the monitor type. It can be a drift or data quality, model performance. It can be anything. Like for example, I'll say it as drift. Okay, or I can say it as a model performance, and I'll click on next, and this is followed by what is the change, and I can set the baseline. Okay, I can set the baseline as to which baseline or what to which reference profile that I want to refer to, and once that is done, I can go ahead and set up the notification as well. That means if I have a large language model which is in production environment, and if this condition is getting satisfied, that means if in this scenario, I'm just showing you a demonstration, right? So here it says that if the metric of accuracy, if it goes below the 10%, okay, then go ahead and trigger an alert, which means it has got the integration with the like it has got the integration with the alerting as well. Okay, that's another best part over here. Okay, and apart from that, if you have got any telemetry data, you can go ahead and explore it over here, and you can click on the Insight Explorer, and you can look into the by default insights that is provided right here. So if you click into the insights, it says that the prompt has pattern. It has got two pattern matches where email address is present. And there's a jailbreak similarity. It has got the jailbreak score of 1, indicating that at least one jailbreaking attempt that has occurred. And sentiment NLTK. So here for the sentiment NLTK, it says that it has got the minimum sentiment score, includes that it has got a negative sentiment in the given text. And it says that there are four patterns that is matching the credit card number. So basically, with the default one that is present, you are able to monitor your large language model, and you are able to see, okay, what are the information that is present. Like for example, here in this has pattern, it says that it has got the credit card information. So this is one use case that I was talking about in the earlier part, isn't it? So I was saying that you cannot make you have to ensure that your model doesn't leak your credit card information. Now with the help of this YLab, with the built-in metric, I'm able to check there are four pattern that is matching it, which has one where I've got the credit card information. Okay, that's the best part. Now, if you look into the others, so there is minimum sentiment score, toxicity. Okay, so all these information, the insights that we are able to get on the large language model. Now, as you can clearly see from these metrics, they are not straightforward. So in case of tabular data, obviously you'll have a straightforward metrics like accuracy or recall score and so on. But here, the since it's a generative AI model where we are working with the natural language data, so even this is also the way that you would perform the analysis is also a different way. And the WhyLabs platform help us to derive the insight for such large language model on this text data as well. Okay, apart from these metrics, we can also create our own metric as well if it is required. Okay, so these are the default metrics from the schema that we have got. If I want, I can create my own metric, I can specify my own pattern, and using that, I can monitor my LLM, that is large language models. All right, guys. So what we did just now is we just now created the outcome, that is logs. We have logged some data. Now we can do a similar thing. What I can do is, so instead of you generating some data in this way, what I can do is I can now load the model from the Hugging Face library. Okay, once I load the model from the Hugging Face library, it can be a GP22 model. And then once I load that model, I can generate the output by providing a prompt for the same, and I can push the same data to my YLogs and try to visualize it in the YLabs platform. So I would leave that up to you as an assignment, guys. I highly recommend you to check out. So you can check out the tutorials that are provided by the Hugging Face uh, library. Okay, you can just make use of some generative models. Okay, there are a lot of tutorials that are provided by them. So let's check right away the ones that I would recommend. So maybe you can just check out some tutorials on generation with LLMs. Okay, go ahead and refer to it. And whatever the output that you would get from that model, push that output to the YLogs using the code that we have used earlier and visualize it. visualize the metrics in the WhyLabs platform. So that's the recommended activity, guys. Now, if you have got any questions, please feel free to let me know in the chat window. And you also have a discussion forum when you launch the webinar portal. When you join the webinar portal over here, you can also post your questions in the discussion portal of this Manifold AI Learning workshops. So me or someone from our community will be able to answer for the challenges that you might have in your production environment. All right, guys. So with this, we come to the end of today's session. So again, guys, I want to thank each and every one of you for joining in, taking your time and joining me on this live session on monitoring your large language models in the production environment. So I hope you found this session useful. Now, if you have got any specific topic that you want me to cover in the upcoming workshops on machine learning, ML ops, and LLM ops, do let me know in the chat window. And I would invite you to check out our course on LLM Ops with ChatGPT Hugging Face, where you will deploy to the production and monitor and go through the complete cycle as well. So thank you again for joining in. Thank you again for taking your time. And thanks, guys. I look forward to seeing you next time. I'll be here on the call for another 2 to 3 minutes to answer any of the queries that you might have. And if you do not have any further queries, feel free to drop, guys. Thank you, Lakshmi. Thank you, Khan. Thank you, Kavya. Thank you, Ramesh. Okay, thank you, Dheeraj. Thank you, Praveen. Thank you, Parvez. Thank you, Umar. Okay, I'll be ending the session on our social media platforms. I'll be there on the Zoom webinar for 2 more minutes for the learners to answer the queries. So others, yeah, feel free to drop, guys. Thank you so much, guys.